We think we know a lot of shit. We think we know what life is. But all of that is just beliefs and assumptions. And when you start to investigate these beliefs and assumptions you have about yourself and the world, you start to see that they're not actually really on a foundation of any kind of truth. All these beliefs and assumptions you have about yourself and the world are just hand-me-downs. They're second-hand knowledge which you haven't verified for yourself. We just think it's true because we think all these beliefs and assumptions that we hold are true because everyone else has the same or very similar beliefs and assumptions about who they are and what the world is, what reality is. Holy shit. And so we just assume, because it's everyone believes and assumes the same thing. But here's a couple examples. One example is, it wasn't actually that long ago that the majority of the people thought the Earth was flat. But now we know through science that the Earth is spherical, round. And so now the majority of the people believe it's round. But of course, back in the day when everyone thought it was flat, if you thought it was round, people would think you're crazy and people would ostracize you. And likewise, if you think the world is flat now, because most people think it's round, then you're the one that's ostracized and whatever. And so, another example is, it wasn't actually that long ago that doctors were prescribing cigarettes for people, for their health. And they'll have cigarette ads on TV saying, your doctor smokes this is healthy for you. But now we can see that cigarettes and tobacco is really fucking unhealthy and bad for you. And so it's this thing, right? No one actually questions their beliefs and assumptions about the world and reality, about themselves and reality. What we know now is not gonna be the same as what we know in the future. It's gonna change. What we think is normal and real now is gonna be foolish in the future, because we're gonna understand more. The way that you live, your life as you know it, is your quality of life depends on the beliefs and assumptions that you use to perceive yourself and the world. The quality of your life depends on your mind. I don't think people question enough that. I don't think people realize that the way they perceive life is a perception based on their own mind. Most of the time we just think life is the way it is, reality is the way it is. We don't realize that our beliefs and assumptions are what's making life seem the way it is, We just think, oh, this is life, this is reality. There's suffering, there's turmoil, there's this this struggle in life, that's life, we think that this kind of struggle is inherent in life. We don't realize that reality is coming from our perception. It's all us, right? There is no inherent existence that is one way, Our perception creates reality. And so, we may think that we're not good enough and we have to do something to be good enough, or there are people in our lives in which, we want to change, we want to fix, people in our lives, like, they're not good enough, I wish they were this way instead. If they were that way, things would be better. But you think that that's just how life is, but you don't realize that you're perceiving life through your beliefs and assumptions. And it colors everything we do and feel and act, everything that we think. And it's really rooted into us. This kind of collective perception that we all hold is rooted in not enoughness. We're constantly rushing around trying to be enough, trying to do enough, trying to earn validation from others and even ourselves. And we think that's just what life is. But what would happen if you really just gave up your beliefs and assumptions? What would happen then? You'd be in a state of not knowing. You'd be in a state of not knowing, right? Now, in our culture, we equate not knowing with ignorance and stupidity. We're constantly trying to appear as knowledgeable, and we're constantly trying to avoid to appear as unknowledgeable or ignorant or foolish. We think we have to acquire all this knowledge so we can be perceived as worthy or adequate in this world, in this society. I'm sure we've all experienced being laughed at and feeling embarrassed and humiliated when we don't know something. When someone is talking to you about something and you're like, I don't know what that is, I don't know what you mean, I've never heard of that. And maybe not everyone, but for me, definitely there's been times where it's like, people are like, how do you not know that? You don't know that. What the fuck? You don't know that. Oh my god, fuck. And you get that feeling of foolishness. When that happens to me now, I think that person's foolish because I don't know, man. Like, the thing is that in this culture, in this collective perception, we value knowledge, but basically the knowledge that we value is just memory. Like, it's not first-hand knowledge that you know from an experiential experience. It's second-hand knowledge that's been handed down to you, knowledge that you've read or heard or been programmed. True knowledge is knowing for yourself and verifying it for yourself. And the only way that you can actually know anything is if you first reside in a state of not knowing. Let things come to you rather than grabbing onto things, because the moment you start grabbing onto things or trying to know things, what you're doing there is you're coming from a previous knowledge or previous assumption or belief, which is coming from another previous belief or assumption. And all these beliefs and assumptions, or quote-unquote knowledge, is all second-hand knowledge which you didn't verify for yourself. And so you're building on a foundation of lies. We think we know what life is. We think we know who we are. We wake up in the morning each day and go like, oh, I've got to grind again. Here's another day of struggling. But why do we feel like that? Because we've been pre-programmed with all these assumptions and beliefs about who we are in the world and what the world actually is. And you haven't questioned any of it. You've just blindly believed in it. And so when you access a kind of state of not knowing, it's the most relieving and liberating thing that you can do, because this collective perception that we're all operating on is one of struggle and suffering and one of inadequacy. And so when you finally drop that perception and reside in a state of not knowing, in a state of almost no perception, then there's such a sense of relief and freedom, because you're basically on a blank slate now. You can create whatever kind of perception, right? And the feeling that I get when I access this kind of state of not knowing, the feeling I get is a feeling that's similar to becoming lucid within a dream. In a dream, you can do anything. It's a sandbox. But most of the time, people are always coming from the past and limiting themselves, not keeping their options open. Like, I can do this thing, I can't do that thing. But it's like, why can't you do that thing? Because you've got some belief or assumption. But when you're in a state of not knowing, you can do anything. Anything's possible. Infinite potentiality. Absolute freedom. Because you don't know anything. You have no assumptions or beliefs about reality. You know, reality is this, reality is that. The world is cruel. The world is beautiful. Like, forget all of that. What do you actually know here and now? If you discard the past, truly, experientially, not just as some thought experiment, but if you discard it experientially in your being, then what the fuck is this moment? Now, when I have a lucid dream, it's like time stops and I can finally relax, and yeah, it's like time ceases to exist. There's no kind of like rushing about. I don't need to get anything or do anything. I don't need to be anybody. I'm enough. I'm complete. I can play. I'm in a state of playing, not striving. When I become lucid and dream, I just stop and slow down and touch the grass, feel it. Pick up rocks, pick up blades of grass, examine the detail in it, and just play with that. Each moment is like playing in a sandbox. And this is the exact same feeling that you get when you reside in a state of not knowing. And of course, this is the most frightening thing, the most scary thing that you can do if you've been in this cultural perception for so long. Because you think you know so much shit. You think you know what the world is, you think you know who you are, and you feel comfortable with that. So as soon as you step into a state of not knowing, you step into a state of uncertainty, you don't know anything, you don't know what the world is, you don't know who you are. When you step into that, it's so freeing. But as soon as you step back into a state of quote-unquote knowing the world and yourself, then the first instant of that is this immense fear. Because it's scary to experientially know that what you think you know about the world and yourself is completely wrong. Because it's so comfortable. We live our whole lives in this comfort of thinking that we know what shit is. And as soon as we step out of that and realize that we don't know fucking anything, that destroys our whole world. That destroys our whole self. And you can see how fucking scary that could be. But ultimately, if you can reside in this state more and more, you'll realize that it's the most freeing thing, It's only scary when you step back into being somebody and knowing what the world is. It's only scary once you step back into thinking that you know what shit is. But the more you can be in a state of not knowing, the more you become accustomed to that, and the more freedom and relief will come about from that. There are so many perceptions to be had, and so many mystical ones and magical ones, that I just know that most of people on Earth right now are just missing. Because to have these kind of to have these kinds of mystical experiences and perceptions are require you to go at this kind of shit alone. Because it's not in the conventional and common place. These mystical experiences or perceptions don't exist in the majority of people in this kind of paradigm that we're in. So you really have to go at this alone if you want to experience this. And I'm not saying mystical experiences or perceptions are the end all be all, but like, they're fucking beautiful. The best kind of technique that I can think of at the moment to kind of practice is the one of really letting go of any presumed or assumed knowledge. And you know you're getting it right when life starts to feel like a dream and you've become lucid within it. When you kind of feel that, that's when you know you've actually experientially done this. I don't know, just some thoughts. Thanks for watching.